let's talk about Daniel Penny, who is a genuine hero, unlike this guy, like they want to say, oh, they're the same. They're just being treated differently. That's what the left is saying, because both were trying to act in defense of others. That's what the Taylor Lorenz of the world see when they look at Penny and this guy. But it isn't so. You could say that to justify the murder of just about anybody who had caused any harm in their business life or professional life. It doesn't make your murder of them justified. Daniel Penny was actually trying to defend weaker people around him on the subway, a fact which is not being acknowledged by the BLM, NAACP, Al Sharpton types today, which want to paint him like he's another Luigi.
Also, he was not intending to kill Jordan Neely. That was not part of his plan at all. He was simply trying to restrain him until first responders could arrive in the subway at the next station. And there was evidence presented that, in fact, he was not putting particular amount of pressure on Neely's chest and neck, that it was just holding him down there, because if you let him go, one of the arguments is, well, once people got off the train, then he should have let him go. Well, you don't know what he's going to do if he's still crazy and you let him go. He could go right back to assaulting people. You don't know if he's armed, but there's simply no parallel. This was somebody who was simply trying to get somebody out of the range of being able to kill other people. And the fear that he might kill other people is completely legitimate and rational. We just went through on November 18th in this country, in New York City, a mentally ill, deranged vagrant who went on a stabbing spree across Manhattan and killed 3 people, stabbing them to death. We regularly have vagrants in the subway who slam people's heads into the subways. 10 days after the Jordan Neely, Daniel Penny incident, a vagrant slammed a woman's head into the subway. She's now paralyzed for life. You know, the argument made by the prosecution was that Penny was either reckless or negligent in his disregarding the risk that by putting Penny in this so-called chokehold, and there's always a lot of semantic play around what constitutes a chokehold, what's not, but he basically brought him down in a bear hug. Penny lay on the subway floor with Neely on top of him. That somehow Penny should have known, and he was indifferent to the risk, that by just holding this guy who was high on synthetic marijuana, that could have led to his death. Under that standard, it is the city that is every single day homicidal, because they know it is not just a possibility, it is a certainty. Given the thousands of untreated mentally ill drug addicts who are roaming the streets, it is a virtual certainty that every couple of days, every couple of weeks, one of them will assault an innocent pedestrian, possibly lethally. And they are on notice. It's not a chance, it is a certainty. And the city and state do nothing. They spend all their money on vanity left-wing projects, whether it's protecting migrants from deportation or various trans projects or affordable housing for single mothers who have made themselves poor by not marrying when they have children, instead of dropping everything and saying our primary responsibility is to protect the public from known obvious risks. We are going to transfer all of the money that we're now wasting on feckless social service providers who cater to the dysfunctional. We're going to build however many mental institutions it takes to confine people who should not be, for their own sake, left to decompose on the streets. Talk about we're all supposed to feel like Penny was indifferent to the human dignity of Neely. The people who are indifferent to Neely's human dignity are the outreach workers and who let him go to sit in his own feces to expose himself on platforms to go battering elderly people and don't give a damn. The homeless, you are not helping the homeless, vagrant, mentally ill, chemical abusers by letting them roam the streets. You are subjecting them to a life of squalor and and sheer uh, just abuse, self-abuse and abuse of others. And yet, the reason we do this is because the homeless lobby needs the homeless on the streets so that they can make their $1 million contracts, and they want to have a symbol of the heartlessness of capitalism. The whole thing is a perverse narrative, and we haven't even gotten to the race issue, Megyn. I have frankly,
Which we will. Let's put a pin in that because that's next. But let me stay
right.
where you are. I'll give you one example. So this was community noted on X yesterday. A commentator named Tiffany Caban writes, Jordan Neely deserved better than the violence of being denied access to stable housing and health care and then to be dehumanized for it. Jordan Neely deserved better than the systems that allow for and justify extrajudicial white supremacist violence against Black people. The community note reads as follows. As part of a plea agreement with prosecutors after he punched a 67-year-old woman in the face in the street in 2021, Jordan Neely was given free access to stable housing and health care at a treatment facility in the Bronx. He abandoned the facility after 13 days. So she's a New York City council member, that Tiffany Caban. They're just not getting it. They refuse to get it, intentionally, willfully blind to the problems.
New Yorkers, New York taxpayers who are working every day, they're getting up early, they're going to the job, they're putting up with possibly obnoxious coworkers or bosses, but because they believe in making self-sufficiency, that they're not going to be leeches on the system, they're really screwed because a judge, thanks to Legal Aid Society lawsuit, has held that we are obligated to provide shelter to everyone on demand. Okay, so we'll just cast aside whether that's just or not. Let's take that as a given. The rule should be if we have to provide you shelter on demand, whether you're a single mother that gets a subsidized private apartment with your own cooking and bathroom facilities, or you're in a congregate shelter as a childless adult, the rule should be you got to use it. If we're going to be paying billions of dollars a year to provide this shelter, you don't get to stay on the streets. It's one or the other. But in fact, they do get to stay on the streets. They do not accept housing. You know, we've lived with this lie for now, what is it, 40 years since the 1990s. It was completely blown out of the water by some early sociologists, the idea that homelessness is a housing problem. No, it's not. It's a problem of mental illness, drug abuse, and what some early researchers call disaffiliation. That means you've broken your social ties, those social ties that may allow you to shack up with your mother or sister. You're so obnoxious, you're so involved in your own addictions that people say, I can't take you any longer. So you don't have that social safety net. But nevertheless, so it's not about housing. These people are offered housing numerous times. Homelessness, vagrancy, I don't even like to use the phrase homelessness, but sometimes it just comes ready to hand. It's a lifestyle choice. I've written on Skid Row in Los Angeles, which is the biggest hell on earth. There's no vista that you've ever seen like it unless you've actually seen Skid Row, of block after block of human degradation beyond belief. But people come from across the country to be in Skid Row because they know they can party without interference. They run prostitution rings out of their cardboards. This is a choice. And if you allow certain people to make that choice, they will, whether they're capable of making it or not. But frankly, you do not get to colonize public space. We used to understand this. You know, for centuries, people understood this. We had Skid Rows, cheap cage housing, SRO, single room occupancy hotels, and the police did something that now you're not allowed to talk about. They moved people along. If you say you don't get to stay here, people make other arrangements. And now Now the government believes that its only duty is to the dysfunctional and the antisocial. It owes nothing to the law-abiding, the hardworking, the tax-paying. They're simply supposed to put up with crime and squalor and feel lucky to be paying taxes to support this massive, feckless, totally incompetent social service industry.
This gets right to the befuddlement of many on the left and in the media as to the reaction that you and I and other sane people are having to this verdict. They don't understand why we're applauding Daniel Penny, because we've seen all the things that you just described. We object to this current system, which none of us voted for or okayed in any way. We miss the old days of there being law and order and of the law-abiding citizens being the ones who are protected and at the front of mind for police. Right. And we're cheering a strong, brave man like Daniel Penny who fills the gap to keep us safe. But I'll just listen to this CNN anchor, Audie Cornish, who seems genuinely confused about this reaction that some of us are having. Here's SOT 6.
When I hear lawmakers hailing Penny as a hero, as a good Samaritan, really being promoted, can you help me understand the thinking? We started at the top of the show talking about the killer of the United Healthcare CEO being hailed in similar terms.
Yeah, let me just help you understand. If you're on the American left tonight, here's my chart. The good guys today, Daniel Penny. The bad guys, Luigi Mangione. It seems to me.
How do you?
Everybody
what's
on the
left, chart for victims?
I'm just telling you what I see out in the world.
I know.
What
I just want you to finish the
today.
chart. Which victim is good and which victim is bad?
What I'm telling you is
that's not on the second page.
People on the left can't seem to tell the difference between the good guys and the bad guys.
People on the left. I'm asking you whether you consider this person.
We had people praising Luigi.
I want to know whether you think that, as Congressman Crane does, that Daniel Penny should get the Congressional Gold Medal to recognize his heroism. I'm not asking you about anyone else.
I think he ought to get medal. I think they ought to build a statue to this guy.
Thoughts on that, Heather?
Fantastic. I completely agree. I mean, he represents something so archaic, which is male chivalry, selfless help of others, stepping in to protect the weak. People were terrified on that subway car, again, for good reason. It is perfectly rational. You mentioned before with regards to taking psychedelics, if you're psychotic, the category of, it's called MICAs, MICAs, mentally ill chemical abusers. They are very violent. When you cross being mentally ill, schizophrenic, and chemical abuse, that leads to very high rates of violence. So those people who were terrified when Jordan Neely burst into the subway claiming he wanted to die, he wanted to go back to jail, implicitly, I'm going to kill somebody to go back to jail, they were completely based on reality. What kills me the most, Megyn, we have two types of hypocrisy. We're bracketing for now the race hypocrisy, but it overlaps with all this maudlin, lachrymose. Well, why didn't people help Jordan Neely? You know, at the start of this, the New York Times ran this hilarious feature about what to do if you see somebody acting out on the subway. And the first suggestion was, well, get the hell out of there, which is what most people do. But it also said, well, go up to that person and say, do you need something? Is there anything I can do for you? All of these people, Al Sharpton, all of the race baiters, and Audrey Cornish and whoever else it is that are saying, well, why didn't Daniel Penny help him? Jordan Neely this was just a cry for help. None of them. I can guarantee you, Megyn, and I'm happy to be proven wrong. Somebody come up and prove to me that you on the left have gone up to a psychotic, raving, drug-addicted vagrant and said, how can I help you? None of them have done it.
For those of us who have been holding our breath for the past several months, waiting for this election, we can finally exhale. Work can now be done on the major issues this country's facing, one of the most significant being our national debt. The fact is our nation's broke, and that debt is a house of cards that cannot be quickly dismantled. So the strategy for you probably remains the same when it comes to your investments. You might want to diversify your savings. This is why I want to tell you about Birch Gold. So many things are out of our control, out of our president's control, so it can be important to have a safe haven for your savings. Birch Gold Group can help you convert an IRA or 401k into an IRA in physical gold. And the best news is it does not cost you 1 cent out of pocket. Text MK to 989898 to get your free info kit on gold. Plus, right now you will receive a free 1-ounce silver eagle for every $5,000 purchased. Protect your savings with Birch Gold and text MK to 989898 to claim your eligibility for free silver today. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.